For the people of New Orleans, it will forever be the ugliest storm of the century, not because of how powerful the Category 5 hurricane was, but because of its aftermath. 4 years ago, the country and the world watched in horror as over 1,000 people either drowned to death or were neglected by the federal government. The graphic images of dead bodies floating in the floodwaters of the Big Easy and the desperate cries for help made Hurricane Katrina a humiliating incident for the U.S. government. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA, came under intense scrutiny in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina for what many Americans called a tragic delayed response.
Where's FEMA? Where's the mayor?
Although it took the federal government nearly a week to deploy resources and manpower to the Gulf Coast, the real help came from average Americans. In the end, nearly 2,000 Americans were killed, over 1 million displaced, and tens of billions in property damage reported.
African Americans for, generations have been disproportionately economically disenfranchised.
Experts say the federal government's slow response revealed racial disparities in the country proved to be detrimental in the case of Katrina.
And there was talk about how this is really bringing back an analysis of racial division in this country, of economic division in this country, and how maybe this will turn the country back to dealing with some of those issues. But I think 4 years later, we can see that the American public was not able to sustain interest.
Hurricane Katrina quickly turned into an incident of racial discrimination, prompting hip-hop artist Kanye West to say on live television, George Bush doesn't care about black people.
All of us need to move forward together because there's much more work to be done.
In his weekly radio address, President Obama paid tribute to those killed and displaced from Hurricane Katrina.
Our approach is simple. Government must keep its responsibility to the people so that Americans have the opportunity to take responsibility for their own future.
However, the hidden story of hope didn't necessarily come from the federal government, but from the American people.
It shouldn't be like that. People shouldn't have to live in tents out in the street just because of natural disaster.
Here at the Cesar Chavez Public Charter School in Washington, programs to rebuild New Orleans help D.C. youth identify with the people and environment in New Orleans.
It makes me feel less confident about what my country can do for me in a situation like that. If something like that would happen here in D.C., I don't know where I would be living because essentially we live in the same type of communities.
With the ultimate goal being that they would then come back and see what they can do in New Orleans, but come back and then know how to implement it where they're from.
Today, efforts to rebuild New Orleans have picked up but are far from over. Organizers say much more needs to be done, but for now, a moment of silence for the Americans who lost their lives in an event that could have been avoided if better managed by the federal government. Katrina Jhafiz, Press TV, Washington.